Today we're going to continue our talk about light bread, the way we use light bread in Appalachian Foodways. If you missed the first two videos about light bread, I will put a link in the description below to that playlist so you can go back and check it out. So the recipe I'm going to share with you today is the simplest, easiest ever French toast. You probably make your French toast like this too, maybe you do. But I've seen lots of recipes for French toast, and I've even made a few of them that are kind of very complicated and call for a lot of things. But the recipe I'm going to show you today is the way that Granny made French toast when I was a girl growing up here in the mountains of Appalachia. And when Granny made French toast, she used for the bread, she used light bread. That's what I use today. If I make French toast for Matt or for me or the girls, I use light bread. Granny most of the time made this dish again when you were feeling bad. Maybe you were feeling puny or peaked, or you was getting over being sick, maybe with a sore throat or something like that. This is what she would make. And when it comes to French toast, like what you put on it, lots of people love to put maple syrup. That would be wonderful if you had some fresh maple syrup, real maple syrup, especially if you made it yourself, if you tapped a tree and made it. But we never had that. Most of the time we would just use syrup, store-bought syrup. We also, you'll hear about people using what we call syrup, sorghum syrup. We always just called it syrup. And that was a really common sweetener in Appalachia, and still is, in my household at least. And I grew up eating syrup a lot. We either had syrup or we had honey. Pap would, it was in the days when he drove a truck, an oil truck around the areas of Cherokee County, a little over into Georgia maybe. And he would, there was I think it was somewhere down in Hiwassee Dam, there was a store, and every year they would get him a case, like a local made case of honey and a case of syrup, sorghum syrup, and that's what we would eat on till the next year. And I always loved syrup. I love honey too, but syrup just has that richness. Now, sorghum syrup is often called molasses in a lot of places, so you might have heard it called that too. And I love Appalachian language. One of the terms that people would use for syrup or honey, either one, was long sweetening. If they talked about that, they had long sweetening. And that was because if if you've ever eat honey or syrup, either one, and how it strings, it's long, how those strings, if you're dipping it out of the jar, the crock, whatever it's in. And then white sugar, store-bought sugar, whether it was white or brown, that was called short sweetening because it was small. So oftentimes, though, when Granny would make my French toast when I was a child, I didn't put any syrup on it. I just liked it plain. I just thought the softness of the bread, and the recipe has sugar in it, so it's already plenty sweet. So that was enough for me. Matt likes to put syrup on his. So in the days before, you could just go to the store and get your syrup, or maybe the store was a long way and you didn't go very often, or maybe you didn't have much money. There was kind of a homemade way of making syrup like you would get. Now again, if you have that fresh, wonderful, real maple syrup, that's the best for sure. But another way of making syrup at home that would often be employed by cooks in Appalachia when they didn't have any store-bought pancake syrup, or it was before that was readily available, would just to make a syrup out of water and sugar. So I'm going to show you a really simple recipe for that too. But first I'm going to show you how to make Granny's little recipe. So of course, depending on how many people you were feeding, you might need to make a larger portion of this. I'm just going to make enough for one person today, so I'm going to use smaller amounts, but you'll see how easy it is, and see how easy it is to expand it, and also to kind of tailor it to what you would like. A lot of people love cinnamon in their French toast. Granny never put it in ours when I was growing up, so I never put cinnamon in mine either, but that would be a great addition. Some of you on our last video left comments about using nutmeg. I'm sure that would be great. So you can kind of see how easy it is to tailor it to what you want. So I like to use a pie plate just to makes it easy to mix it up in. So I have an egg. I've already cracked an egg. I have a little bit of sugar, and again, I don't even measure, so I just put a sprinkle of sugar. And I have some vanilla, just like a dash, pretty much is all that is. And then you can either use milk, which is probably what Granny used most often, and I've used it certainly a lot, or half and half, or even heavy whipping cream. I've used it before if there's some that I need to use up. And again, as you make it, you'll just kind of figure out the amounts for yourself, what you like, what works best for you. And then you just really mix it up together, and then you're ready. Take it over to the stove and make your French toast. So before we actually fry up the French toast, I'm going to go ahead and make my syrup. So I'm going to use, I've got just a little sauce pot, and again, I'm only making enough for one, well really it'll make more than enough, but anyway, I'm going to make a very small amount, and so you could make more if you need it, and you can also tweak this recipe to what you need. So I have a half a cup of water. I may add a little bit more water, but we'll see. And then I have a half a cup of sugar and a half a cup of brown sugar. Now to this, you could add, if you wanted to, you could add, certainly you could add vanilla, but if you had maple flavoring, you could add some maple flavoring to it and make a faux maple syrup, kind of like what you think of for pancake syrup. I'm not going to add that though. I don't have any maple flavoring. You also need to add just a dash or so of salt. And then we're going to let that at least come to a boil, because you want to make sure that all the sugar has dissolved and you won't have any kind of gritty places. And if you find that it's too thick, you can, you know, all you'd need to do is add you a little bit more water. Okay, my syrup is kind of boiling along over there. I turned it down to a simmer. And again, something you could play with. If you cook it longer, of course, it's going to be a thicker consistency. But mostly you want to bring it to a boil and let it boil just a few, at least a few seconds, if not a minute or so, just to make sure all the sugar's dissolved. You want to do that. So now I have my mixture here that I whipped up, and I have my light bread. So I'm just going to put it in there. You want to give it just a second or so, or 2 or 3, just to kind of soak up all the egg stuff. I have my cast iron pan already heated, and then I'm just going to lay kind of let the excess drip off and then put it right in there. Now, if you have any of the French toast, kind of the liquid, the egg mixture left over, you can put it in the refrigerator and it'll last another day or two. So if you wanted to make French toast on another day, if you ended up with too much, I'm pretty much going to use all of mine today. And I'm going to put that one. And it just takes a very few minutes on each side. You just want to get it brown. If you think about it, it's the egg. Basically, you're cooking the egg on the bread. That's what French toast is, at least this simple French toast. Some of them get pretty elaborate, but for this one. And this would be a good time if you did want to put cinnamon. You could sprinkle it right on the bread. Again, I didn't grow up with cinnamon, so I don't ever use it. Okay, I think that's going to do it for us. Now we're going to get to taste it, which will be great. Okay, now time to taste it. Normally I would not put syrup on mine. I like to eat it just plain because it's sweet enough. Another thing you could do that's really pretty is you could dust it with powdered sugar. That would be good. But I am going to use some of our homemade syrup, so I'm going to drizzle some of that on it. Okay, let's see. I haven't eaten anything yet this morning, so this will be tasty. Well, I'm lying. I did eat like a quart of blueberries. That was my breakfast. The syrup is good. How could it not be with all that sugar? So good. Definitely a taste of childhood for me. Very good. And that syrup is really wonderful. Really good. Like I said, how could it not be? This is a dish that most often I make. Like I was saying, when I was young, when you wasn't feeling good. So I kind of make it for that, especially when the girls were younger. I would, if they were feeling bad and, you know, maybe they had the cold or bronchitis or something like that. That's when you think of these kind of foods, and I would make it for them. Today, I most often make it when me and Matt are in a hurry. If we On the weekends, I love to make a big breakfast with the sausage and the gravy and fried apples and biscuits and all that. But if we're going to work outside on the weekend, we can't eat that big breakfast and then go right out and start hauling mulch and plowing the garden and all that. So a lot of times we want something lighter. So and we need to hurry and get out there before the heat of the day. So a lot of times that's when I'll make French toast. But I hope you enjoyed seeing this other use, how I used one more way that light bread is used in the mountains of Appalachia to make French toast. Hope you'll leave a comment and share your favorite French toast recipe, or share if you also use light bread for this. And as always, I hope you'll drop back by often to help me celebrate Appalachia, and there's more light bread recipes coming.